Good evening, everyone. We are here for our ordinary council meeting for the 23rd of July, 2024. And we open the meeting at 5 p.m. I'll start with acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the Ngāti and Kaurna people, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today. We'll move on to attendance. So present, we have our CEO and the 4 managers, and we have a couple people, 3 people in the gallery, 4 people in the gallery. Apologies, we do have one apologies. Councillor Dean Rolack, he's not feeling well, so he's called the CEO and me today that he can't attend. We have a leave of absence. Bill O'Brien is happily in Britain somewhere. Apparently he's riding on trains, which is good. And then we have Councillor Fabio Antonelli. We have no non-attendance. We'll move on to confirmation of council minutes. We got a first recommendation that the minutes of and confidential minutes of the meeting of the ordinary council meeting held Tuesday, the 25th of June, be confirmed as true and correct record of the meeting. Do I have a mover and seconder? Bill, Councillor Bill, moving. Councillor Collins, seconder. All those in favour? This is carried. We have a second recommendation that the minutes of the meeting of the special council meeting held Tuesday, the 2nd of July, be confirmed as true and correct record of that meeting. Again, do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bill again, mover. Councillor Lynette, seconded. All in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Now we come into communications. First, Mayor communication. I got 2 things to mention. I've attended the opening of the Sala exhibition at Wonderground. And I think we've all been there on our bus trip. That's that beautiful place in the sort of Gomersil Barossa area. I just want to commend Renee and Kirsty for their excellent work that they're doing there. So it was a beautiful evening, well attended, and I do want to stress again how important it is that we support these things, and I think the best way we do that is to have good roads that people can actually get there. Well, but I think we're probably going to address that, or we are addressing that in our next budget, which is a good thing. So then the other thing that I did attend was the Northern York LGA special meeting, where we just talked about the CEO's employment. It was confidential, so yeah, I think that's all I got to tell you guys. Has any elected member anything to report? Councillor Bill.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I attended a Wasleys Community Group meeting on Sunday week, I think. There was about 11 or 12, might have been 14 people in attendance. It was a good meeting. We discussed a lot of things they've already approached the council about, and a few other things I just want to reinforce. Some list of items I've got for the officers to discuss at some stage. But it was a good meeting, and they're very keen to be involved and be known that they're an active group within the community. I think they're actually the only residents group as such that we've got within the council region since the Kapunda one's folded. So it's very good to see that they're active and enthusiastic. They're planning another one in September.
Good. Anybody else? No. We move on to point 5, petitions. We do have a petition that's been presented to us from the Freeling Community Garden. We'll just note that. We have no deputations, no adjourned business, and we'll move on to item 8, action item. So I'll do the same as Councillor Mayor Bill does, and I just ask for if there's anything on those different pages, and you interrupt me if there's such a thing. Councillor Lynette.
Are we, where is the petition for the Freeling Community Garden?
It is attached to the agenda.
Oh, right.
So action items, is any questions on page 7?
Yes.
Councillor Peter.
On the first item, planning and zoning options in the railway precinct of Kapunda, 10/7/24, new owners of Kapunda silos notified to council. Who are the new owners?
I think that's something for Karen to respond to.
Yeah, through the chair. I believe it's a local consortium, so 3 different people that have purchased that. The gentleman I spoke to is based out of Freeling. Yeah, their intention is, I think, to utilise the silos. I don't think they have a current customer yet, but that's certainly something that's on their plans.
Anything else on page 7? Page 8 and page 9. Good, we move on. Recommendations from committees. We don't have any committees anymore. We got infrastructure and sustainability reports. 10.1 sustainability updates. I don't know, Andrew Philpott's not here to have anything more to say, but I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. I mean, the only thing that I probably would say is that I'm pleased about the House of Tomorrow idea. I mean, it's something that I've championed a few years ago in a different format, really. But I mean, in the end, it's the same outcome. I think it's important to make people realize that maybe spending a little bit more money now will, in the long term, save them money in electricity costs and in running costs of a dwelling, and provide a better housing stock in the future, and it's better for the environment and for society and for Australia at large. So I think it's a win-win-win-win-win situation. So if people realize that, that'd be a great thing. We do have a recommendation at the end of that.
Can I ask a question through Mr.
Councillor Bill.
To the staff, I see that this 7 Stars starts on the 1st of October 2024. Will that mean you'd expect a lot of housing applications in the months before that, or is it just are they already engaged in this process of having them up to that standard?
That's probably something for Ray to answer, possible.
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and one I probably have to take back to our staff for the definitive answer. This has been known for some time, is my understanding. So it's building up to it. The awareness of the certain exemptions was something which has also been made aware previously. Whether that leads to more applications before the deadline, yeah, I couldn't say, possibly. Sorry to be less than specific on that. I can take that back and come back with a response.
Just a further question, my mate. See, Mount Barker's been exempted from the area. Would that have been a council exemption request, or would that have been a developer extension request, or have we have no idea?
Again, I'd need to double check for exactness to be specific. I imagine to be, because it's across the council area, it would have been through the council channel, would be my expectation. Probably with the support of the groups that you mentioned. Yeah.
Nothing further to add there. We'll have reports for information. Oh, sorry, I skipped that. But yeah, sure. We got a recommendation on page 14, just that council receives the infrastructure and sustainability report and the contents therein be noted. To have a mover and seconder. Move Councillor Peter, second Councillor Ellison. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. And hit point 11, there's nothing there. Point 12, item 12, reports for information. So, I don't know, we got 5 reports. I wonder if there's anything that anyone wants to say about it. So we got the addressing of, I'll quickly mention the 5, 1, 2, 6 reports addressing secure and affordable housing, options regarding RV park, opening of grant funding programs, capital works program quarterly progress, USAU future, and CEO monthly report. So is any of these, Councillor Michael?
Yeah, thanks to the Mayor. Just in relation to the report under 12.1, which I called for secure and affordable housing. The first thing I'd like to say about that is thank you to Gemma and Kyron on what is a very thorough analysis of the housing in the Light Regional Council area. I think it's a terrific, although somewhat sobering report. So well done, and thank you for meeting the timeframe on it that we agreed. I think what it does do is probably confirm for me some of the sentiment in the community and the concerns that I've had around the availability of affordable housing supply in the Light Regional Council area. And in particular, although it's not necessarily my area, in and around Kapunda as well. A couple of questions perhaps that I had in relation to that is what, so the Barunga case study I found quite inspirational, and I came across it, I think, when I was formulating the motion originally. I do have sort of 2 or 3 questions that are fairly brief on this. Is that something, I know we can't make a decision here on it now, but is that something that would be feasible for this council to consider?
I think this is probably something for Kyron. I'm personally not familiar with the Barunga study.
Yeah, through the chair. So just briefly, Barunga West probably faces different issues to this particular council. They certainly lacked any sort of population growth, any significant population growth, given their location. They were keen to grow their population base. I think there was land that was zoned or within township boundaries that weren't being activated by those landowners due to, I guess, infrastructure provision costs. And the council sort of chose to put an offer in, purchase the land, and essentially be the role of the developer. So to develop that land and offer it up on basically lots, so not developed housing, but certainly lot purchase basis. So that was their case study, and we see it elsewhere, mainly in City of Salisbury, I think, I think City of Salisbury have activated in that developer type space with land that they've had surplus to their needs, and certainly rolled out subdivisions to try and achieve outcomes that the development sector typically wouldn't achieve. So there's several case studies in that area. And as I think I alluded to in terms of this particular report for information, there's probably 2 pathways the council would go down. One is to do a strategy. That obviously takes some time. There's a lot of engagement involved with that. That could be comprehensive, or it could actually come up with some key actions that the council might take. The second pathway is probably jumping to some actions that are already underway regionally, facilitated and led by the Regional Development Australia. And so they're keen to have a look at housing choice. So what can local governments do to intervene in that space to create greater housing choice options? So, more units, higher density. So stuff that the development sector isn't typically rolling out in our area. as well as whatever subsidies council might want to choose to do, whether it's providing some infrastructure that isn't added on to the cost of allotment or housing. Could even look to partner with some of those not-for-profit affordable housing providers to get some built form outcomes. So there's a product there directly available for those in need. So that's a body of work that RDA is embarking on with the 4 local governments that it presides over. And I guess the role of this council would be guided by the council, of course, but whether the council wants to offer up surplus land, that we certainly, the council's seen reports on surplus land in the Roseworthy vicinity that could be utilised for that purpose. Be a bit of a change of direction from the council's current position. There's also some land in Kapunda that could be available that's operationally certainly surplus to needs. It's only about 1.6 hectares, or there is land for sale in Kapunda at the moment at a broad hectare scale that's just come onto the market recently that would be similar to the Barunga West type approach. It's unserviced, would need some considerable infrastructure spend to activate, but it's larger in land area, so you can get greater outcomes.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Kyron. I do intend to propose a motion to progress this further. And I guess putting that into context, I think it would be good to see what comes out of that as a tangible strategy that would see, for example, the council partnering perhaps with a not-for-profit, or I've shared some of the information around the HAF through the federal government, which was providing opportunities for local government to get involved through that scheme that may well continue into the future. So I'm not sure whether I can do it here, Mayor, to move a brief motion just in response to this report.
I think this is the place to do it. Yes.
Yep.
Councillor Collins.
The land at Kapunda, where's that?
Yeah, through the chair. So there's some land in between Coghill Street and Way Street, follows the creek line, so it certainly will have some challenges.
That's council.
It is.
What's the land that's come on the market?
So there's some land in the northeast. It was rezoned sort of 2008, 2009 between Maxwell and Nash Street.
Not Hench.
No. So that's
That's sold very quickly. I think there is an appetite for developing land in Kapunda already. There's people who are buying land with the idea to develop it. So there's a lot of houses being built here in the last 5 years, and there's talking to the people that have bought that, they're going to push that reasonably quickly, from what I understand. So there are there's supply coming in under. It's not just there's no houses being built.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Councillor Collin. I think I come at this with the approach that I'd like to see the chamber show some leadership. So it's great that there's private developers coming in, but we want to make sure that the outcomes from that development also flow through to people, who need housing, who may not be in a position to negotiate with through a traditional development process. So I think, and I'll forward a motion to governance on this. So I think the council should note the comprehensive report that's been provided to this meeting is the first part of the motion. The second part of the motion then is to progress the development of that the CEO proceeds to prepare a local affordable housing plan with terms of reference to be determined before October 2024, not the plan, just the terms of reference, and with a plan to be delivered notionally by March 2025. I'm open to further discussion on those timeframes. I picked them because I like having timeframes, as you know. So,
Councillor Collins.
I'm just going to ask a question. The housing trust houses that were under, are any of them still owned by the state, or they've all been sold?
through the chair. Yeah, I'd have to take that on notice. Looking around the room, I think Lisa might be able to answer the question.
Through the chair, some of that housing is now owned by the Aboriginal Housing Commission. There are parts adjacent the mine site, and there are still one or two properties owned by the South Australian Housing Trust. I've actually personally done applications on them in the last 10 years.
One question I would have to Michael, maybe is that you were saying as part of that motion, we can't see it just yet, but that the CEO make or his delegate develop a plan. Is that according to that 10-step plan that we've had in the agenda?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, look, effectively, I would take it that the administration would use that as a reference point, but I'm not fixed in my view in terms of the structure of it. But I think what's important is that there's tangible actions that this council's actually taking beyond sort of, working with developers and this sort of thing. I'd like to see, for example, activating the council land, and is there a way we work with partnerships? Is there grant funding? So I think it's exploring those things. We don't have all the answers here. Happy to be involved in developing those terms of reference, but broadly speaking, that's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
So we do soon have a recommendation. Is everybody happy with those timeframes? So you wouldn't want that presented at a meeting? It's just in between sometimes, or?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think what's important is that we give the administration some guidance on what we're hoping to achieve from this. I've spoken at a very high level about it, but then we sort of determine some terms of reference. We do that by the end of October. That sort of says we want to look at council land. We want to look at not-for-profits. We want to look at what grants are out there to give them some guidance, and then we agree that terms of reference, and then they can go and produce the report. That's what I had in mind. That makes sense.
At what point would you as elected members have any input into that? Did you get presented to a special meeting or like information session to a regular meeting? How do you envision that? How does this recommendation envision that?
Yep, that's a good question. Thank you. Perhaps I'll be guided by the staff on the best approach to that in terms of developing the terms of reference. It could be an information session that then goes to a council meeting to sign off on the terms of reference. That may be one way of dealing with it.
Richard, is there something to comment?
Yeah, through the chair. So I guess I'm interpreting your definition of terms of reference as like if we just take this 10-step plan approach that the local affordable housing plan toolkit takes us through, it's establishing the vision and priorities and developing objectives and actions. I'm sort of seeing that aligning with perhaps terms of reference. So that's what we'd seek to be. We'd probably be seeking to be at sort of step 5 and 6. 4 and 5 by October, and then obviously trying to close and prepare. We'll have a plan prepared for adoption by the council in March.
Because it's fair to say you're probably almost at 0.3 now based on the information you've put together. So it's really going to that next step by the end of October and then the rest of it. Yeah.
And this would all be done in-house, so that there's no expenditure attached to that.
I guess it would be my intention to continue engaging with the RDA on their activities, because I think that informs it would inform our plan. So yeah, not entirely done in-house, but I don't expect we'd need a budget. If anything, there would be some engagement costs for engagement with stakeholders and others, which we'd normally require, but I don't see them being substantial costs that couldn't be found.
What are the engagement costs? What are they?
I guess we haven't got a community engagement plan set out or anything, but usually there's advertising costs around that. If we're going to have sort of meetings, depending on where those meetings are, there might be sort of venue hire fees and those sorts of things.
Makes sense. Well, we do have a recommendation. I don't know if he. Yes, absolutely.
Just a clarification through the chair. Is that before the 31st of October 2020? Is that your aim, to get it to the October meeting, or do you want it to the September meeting? Okay, no, and that would be the same with the March as well, for you had 31st in both of those, so that they get to those.
Good. So we do have this recommendation in front of us. I don't know if is there any more questions? Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Michael moved the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ellison, do the mover and seconder want to speak to their motion?
Just very briefly, Mayor. Look, I mean, again, I'd just like to thank the staff for their efforts. It would be a shame for their efforts to go wasted. I note that this is a topic that the council received feedback from the community on through, I believe, through the customer survey, and certainly comments on the strategic plan. This does feature in our strategic plan. And I think it's also been a topic of conversation in the Barossa Leader in an editorial when I wrote a letter about it a couple of months ago. So I think it does resonate with the community. It would be disappointing if we just took this information the staff have given us and done nothing with it.
So anyone else wants to speak for or against? Councillor Ellison, anything to close? I think with this, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? This is a tie, so which brings it to me, and I'll be for it. Councillor Colin called the division. So those, and we probably have to wait just 1 second. So those who are for it need to just stand up, which includes me. We have to just. Councillor Colin. You can sit down. Now, so we're still with report for information. We've only addressed the first one. Is there any other questions, comments to be made on the other 5 remaining points? Councillor Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just and again, a great report here on the options for an RV park in Freeling. It seems from the report that the Freeling Recreation Park or another site that's not owned by council were the two most viable options. The question I have is in relation to site 5, which is the community-run Freeling Recreation Park. Has council, in preparing this report, had any dialogue with the group that's responsible for managing that recreation park?
I had a phone call from Gavin Schuster this afternoon with regard to this, and their committee have said they don't want to borrow it because, well, they don't. They've got a lot of sporting bodies there, and we did try to have a caravan park many years ago, and the only toilets that were there were available for the people that were hiring the venue, and so he said that they don't want to know anything about it. They don't want to do it.
Will answer that.
That was the question. The question. Oh, sorry.
You've started.
Councillor Lynn, Councillor Collins.
The way I understood the question was, you're asking if someone who prepared the report had asked anyone from, not today, before writing the report. Yeah, that's so, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. So there hasn't been any engagement at this point. I guess that was the suggested first step. If there was a consideration to explore it further.
Thanks. Councillor Bill.
Just a comment, at the Wasleys Community Forum, there was strong support for an RV park in Wasleys, so they're very keen to have one, so might be a better answer.
Do you know if they have any option where they want to put
Well,
it?
they're talking around the oval where the facilities are. There's an RV, is the RV dump there yet, or it's planned? It's about to be there, and they're very keen to have an RV site there. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that seems a good option there. Good. Anything further to any of these reports? Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the capital program, which is a great report. Thank you, Megan. I just wanted to note that I did visit the Kapunda mine site recently, and I think that is a good success story. It looks really good. I did have a question though around the GSM roundabout. Did council undertake any market testing for that to be sort of built by a contractor, or is that something we're building in-house?
Through the chair, the original submission for the black spot funding was for council to deliver the project, utilising council services and a mixture of contractors as well.
We do have a recommendation on page 5, well, actually page 60 of the agenda, to be honest, that the reports or information we received and the contents therein be noted by council. Do I have a mover? Councillor Michael, and a seconder, Councillor Peter. All those in favour? Those against? This is carried. We move on to reports for decision. So the first one is, you say, your future community ward projects upgrade. The Freeling Community Garden. We earlier had a bit of a discussion about that. I'm not sure if Megan or Richard landed on something there.
Thank you, Mayor Zeller. Look, through the chair, we understand that I guess there's some discussion around this particular project. There's been some ongoing discussion since the adoption of the ward projects in relation to this particular matter with staff and the proponents, of which there are 3 originally, and it's evolved in terms of looking at the Frilling Institute site, but also around the capacities of various groups to perform certain functions in respect of the funding. We have crafted the report looking at, I guess, within the parameters of what was originally proposed. That is a project that was at the Frilling Institute, and looked at nominating an area that was outside of other works that are foreshadowed for that space in terms of the car park being upgraded. For one of the iterations of the proposal that's happened through the journey to date was looking at potentially expanding the area that would be involved in the community garden to include part of that car park area potentially. Look, and other sites have been considered, but the reason staff brought this report to this meeting was around the fact that the project was potentially evolving beyond what's originally foreshadowed. So it's partly about raising that matter with the elected body. But after discussions this afternoon, we're prepared to withdraw it at this point, go back to the proponents and work through the matter further, and come back to council with another version. We understand that will include some work around who the funds are entrusted to. So there'll be a process for the body who are seeking the funding to be incorporated within that process, as I understand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Craig. I think that's a good decision. There's some things in there that just weren't really ready to be adopted. So we move on to 13.2, dog rehoming policy and procedure. Councillor Lynn, can you?
Yes. The committee, once the Institute committee went back to and couldn't form anybody in a group, the idea of fencing off a garden right in the middle of the town like that is just it's not on. I don't think it's really the thing we should be doing. If they can get a constitution up and all that stuff, that'd be fine. But I don't even think that is the place for it, to fence that off in that area. We are going to seal that whole area that's gone through council, and to make that area more accessible to car parking, and which will help with the town car parking. So I'm not interested in anything to do with people that don't know what they're doing. They don't really know exactly what they want. There's a lot of contention in that committee. I think you would have found that when you spoke to them.
I take that as a comment. We'll move on to 13.2, dog rehoming policy and procedure and related agreements. I think these are, well, I'll throw it out. There's any questions or comments? Otherwise, we do. You have them? Oh, do we have a move on second? It looks like Councillor Michaels jumped ahead. He moved the recommendation on page 68. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Allison. That's normal discussion, I suppose. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. We move on to 13.3, delegation update. That's quite a recommendation. I think I'm going to read the whole thing. Let's start. No, I won't. I think that there's any comments or question. If so, no. We got a mover, Councillor Michael. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Lynette? No more discussion. Those in favour? All those against? Yeah, carried unanimously. Now, we move on to point 13.4. Nomination for a chairperson and deputy chairperson for the Northern and York Local Government Association. I'm not sure if there's any further to report. Richard or
Mr Mayor, I'd like to nominate Bill O'Brien. Just to be continuation of his current position.
as I understand, I think he wants to continue in that role himself. So I think do we need to vote on that? On that nomination, or we can just insert that and then work it as a recommendation?
Council will effectively move that.
So he moved it with Mayor Bill in that. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lynn? Any discussions? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Move on, point 13.5. Local Government Finance Authority of South Australia Annual General Meeting, 22nd November of 2024. Now we'd have two options really: to appoint somebody as a representative of to the Local Finance Authority, or we're not going to do that. So I'll put it out there if there's any opinion one way or the other.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Michael.
Does Councillor Michael accept the nomination?
Yeah, I'm interested in this. Thank you, Matt.
I think would you be willing to move that with your name in there? Is that we need this as a suitable thing? Yeah.
Just going to come back to the governance training. Should dismiss himself.
Okay.
But Councillor Allison
Can move.
has effectively moved. Councillor can go in, but Michael Councillor has to put down loud. Yeah.
Right. You've moved it now. Okay. Now we look for a seconder. Councillor Allison move. Councillor Colin seconder. So this is appoints Councillor Michael Phillips-Ryder as the council representative. Notes. And then and then resolve. Yeah, that's 1, 2, and 3. I would have thought. Do we? The question is, do we have anyone that would fit in that? Doesn't even have a council in front of it, so we could nominate anybody. Do we have?
There's someone experienced with council or financial matters.
Mm.
Generally, it's a mayor that serves somewhere, like the city of Charles Sturt was the mayor, and it's generally a mayor that takes a position that's been involved in the local LGA for some time.
Well, we can't ask the we can ask the acting mayor, but I wouldn't want to do that. And we can't ask the actual mayor. So this would probably mean that we're not going to nominate. I mean, I'll put it out the room. It's not for me to decide. What do the councillors think? Councillor Allison?
Through the chair, can we not nominate Councillor Michael for that one as well?
Sure on that.
Yes.
Okay, so do we need to ask Councillor Michael if he would want that?
Well, I'm going to nominate him, so.
So we need to get him back in again.
Through the chair,
Councillor, yeah.
I held both positions, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yes.
And so I'm quite happy for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, just to be clear to everyone, there are two different roles here. One is effectively a voting representative, which is point one, and the third one is as a board member, so to the LGFA.
And there's a point 3 of at point 2 that we not going to put a motion, a notice of motion, the local on the planners authority. So that's in there. Now, so we do have,
So we're not going to nominate Bill for the position.
no, it's going to be both, Michael. That's going to be nominated for both of those positions.
No, I think, well, I wouldn't agree with that. I think that the mayor, well, he's on leave now, but I mean, has got good contacts in both of those, the finance and the AGM, and he would know exactly what to do. So I don't agree with Michael doing both. I think he could do the finance, that would be fine, but I do think that he, the mayor should do the general. Can't do that.
Through the chair, point one is at the LGFA, not the LGA.
No.
So the mayor would continue to be our voting member at the LGA ordinary
He
meetings.
would.
Yes, so that
Okay, that's
this,
fine.
This is at the LGFA's annual general meeting.
No, he actually took it over from me because I wasn't going. Okay.
Councillor Collin.
So he's only a candidate in the second one, isn't he? So he might never get voted in, you know. So, you know, and what are the chances of him getting voted in?
I've won in 68.
So there's 68 people go in. No, how many?
Technically, they could nominate somebody.
Oh, so but how many people nominate? Right. So, you know, yeah, they stick him in, they can.
So, Councillor, you're happy then with all 3 points? So you're happy with all 3 points then? That's been cleared up. So then this is still Councillor Ellison's motion. He moved. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Collin. So I'll put the motion. Those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. We can bring Michael back. Thanks. Everyone's back again. We 13.6, the dispute of the Golden River Floodplain Management Authority draft budget. I think we have Richard Dodson to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Simon. It's just an update to this at the moment in relation to the councils which are in dispute with the Gawler River Floodplain Management Authority, and it is only Light Regional Council now. The Adelaide Hills Council, at its most recent meeting, have resolved to fund the annual member contributions as well as the business case.
So would that mean if we would be the only people, what sort of ramification would that have if we would choose the option not to fund the business case?
If we are in dispute, and we currently are in dispute, and the authority chooses to take the legal path, which at the moment it is pausing on, we would need to seek legal advice, which we haven't done at this point. So we haven't expended any money, but I would expect that of the business case contribution, there is a risk that we could consume probably half of that contribution in legal fees if we end up in a dispute with the authority.
So your recommendation would probably be to approve the full amount. Is that correct to say?
I've hedged my bets here, but yeah, the green is probably the path of least resistance for council to take. And equally, while I've hedged my bets here, I have actually included the contribution in the draft annual business plan.
Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a governance question. As the nominated representative on this authority, do I participate in this discussion or not?
Yes, you can.
If I may then, thank you, Mayor. So having been involved in this now for just under 2 years, the comment I would make is that I understand that the councils have a obligation to maintain the existing infrastructure through the GRFMA, and that a resolution was passed, and I think passed here, to progress a business case to a point. What this funding does is get that business case to a point where it's then complete and able to then progress to the next stage through the state government. I've made very clear in here before that I see this as a state government issue. And, you know, I think to the extent that we are obliged to continue to maintain the existing infrastructure, I think it would be good to look at a way ultimately that the GRFMA no longer exists, and whether or not that's, that maintenance is then carried out by one of the councils, and the councils then contribute to that council to deal with it. I think the GRFMA serves its purpose through concluding the business case, and then that business case needs to be then carried by, it's a major capital project, potentially, and the state then takes it on from there. I don't think it would be wise to leave, having already spent this money on the business case, to leave it unfinished. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with the ongoing nature of the GRFMA, if that makes sense.
So is there the appetite to move a motion, either the green or the yellow version, Councillor Con?
I think I was the one that excluded it last time. I find it hard to spend the money on this, but it sounds like we've been bullied a bit, but just to be clear, the only reason we're paying this is because we agreed to do the business case originally. So the business case has been going for now, how many years? 3 years. So this is going to be the final payment that we are to make. Am I clear with that for the business case? Or are they going to have another go next year? Because if this business case doesn't complete and it just keeps going on, when are we going to hold the ground? That's the thing. Like, I'm sure that's what the Hills Council were thinking as well, because if you can keep playing the game, we'll keep paying the money.
Fair question.
Yeah, thank you. Look, in response to that, I think the question is, for the council, we are part of the authority at the moment, and if that's something that our view changes and we think we shouldn't be part of it, then I think that's a question to respond to from that point of view. As for the business case, our understanding is that this will get it into the right gateway to get funding.
But what was it last year? But the money we gave last year was going to finish it, wasn't it? That was my understanding.
When this originally came to the chamber, the dollar figure that was requested was $100,000. We paid 50, and we are now being asked for another 25. So it's down on where the original number was. And what's being presented is this is the number that gets it into the business case completed to enable it to get to Infrastructure SA, which we would hope will get to a point where its carriage would take it to some level of funding. And then, as Councillor Michael has pointed out, it will then be for this chamber to make the determination as to whether it it funds anything further.
I'll move the motion, but I'd like a number 4 put there that, this is the last money we'll pay for the business case. Would we be able to do that?
Not sure if that's possible.
Well, I'm moving the
I
motion.
don't know, yeah.
If I can just maybe provide some assistance or perhaps a view in response to councillor Collin, would it not be the case though, any further money, if they were to ask for it, would have to come back anyway?
We knocked it off last time and here we are, we're going to have a legal dispute. So if it's in the motion, it's going to be clear to them then that we're not, that's the end of it. Because otherwise, that makes it a bit final, doesn't it? They're going to keep coming back, maybe, I don't know. But if we put that in this motion, that this is the last money that is to be provided for the business case, and I've moved the motion, there's a recommendation. If I've moved the motion, can't I then do that?
You can do that. The only issue with if it be is something that we can't do ultravirus or something, so that's what needs some.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting. Would inserting the word final after member council. Sorry. Yeah. Approves a final amount of. Would that? I think there's some caution should be used around never to make another contribution. When I understand, but does this satisfy? It's probably a neater.
As long as it's made clear when a representative of our council goes to these meetings that this is a final payment and this recommendation with a final amount is what is articulated, I'll be happy with that.
The one.
Yeah, I think Richard's suggestion, a final payment or final payment of the amount would cover that in that, towards the business, because it mentions the business case at the end, so approves the final payment amount of towards the business case would cover it.
But if you do insert approves a final amount of $46,000, then it means as a member council contribution to support the operations of the GFMA, inclusive of the business case. That doesn't separate the business case from the rest of the operations. So what Councillor Collins is trying to do is we stop the business case and not necessarily the contribution, as our CEO pointed out earlier. That's a pathway to do that, but that's not this one.
Yeah, that's why I suggested number 4, because then it actually makes it very clear that the business case is not to be supported any further.
Can you just hit the undo button? Can you get rid of the 21228 for me?
Tonight, Ali Clark's cancer battle and how her brave on-air revelation is.
And if we can have that as include under in the below part, in the underneath. So yeah, no, just a 3, and we'll say inclusive.
Final contribution to the business case
of a final payment of 25,000 to complete the business case.
Yep. That seems good to me. We would have to eradicate the yellow bit up there, yeah, the exclusion there. That to me sounds a good thing. Councillor Collin, you happy with that as a mover? Good. Happy enough to move it? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Michael? Any more discussions, questions? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Councillor Collin, mover. Councillor Michael? We do move on to our supplementary, sorry, give us a.
Eileen. Councillor Cobb. Move.
It's 25.
No, yeah, no, you're right. So you had two choices, 46,000 or the 21, but the 21 is the 46 less the 25. So it was just to delete one or the other.
So we got one more, 13.7, 2024 customer satisfaction survey. Is there anything, does anyone want to add, discuss, question? We do have a recommendation in front of us. Page 84. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Michael moves the recommendation. Councillor Bill seconds the recommendation. I put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. So we do move on to the supplementary agenda, point 13.8. Let's get that open. Reports for decision still. Council opening hours temporary variation. Again, any questions, anything to discuss?
Just a query on that. I mean, it's that 2 hours? It seems a big effort just for 2 hours of group, back rubbing.
It does seem very short. I'm not sure if.
Is it just they joining lunch together, or what is the? Is there a morning session with half the group, then an afternoon session with half the group? Is that what I'm understanding? And then there's a joint.
That's exactly right. The way these sessions have worked, and we've had these for the last 3 years, but at lunchtime, we would normally have the people from the morning session would, so you're quite right. So everything is overlapped nicely. So all of our offices have remained open. But what happens in reality is that at lunchtime, we get as many people together for the lunch session, and then the morning session go back to work and vice versa. The reality is, though, that some people leave, basically eat their lunch and leave very, very quickly to relieve those people who are keeping offices open. And that's one of the areas that we've looked at before and said, how can we make this a bit better? And the only way to really do it is to shut the offices for a short period to enable everyone to be there and collaborate at the same time. So.
We do have a mover, Councillor Lynn. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Michael. Suppose I put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. We move on to nominations for SAROC member. Now we do have 2 choices here. We can nominate a councillor for that position, or we can resolve not to nominate any candidate for that position. So I'll leave it open to the chamber. Councillor Michael.
But just a question, so, excuse me, does Mayor Bill normally attend this? Is it, does he not want to? It doesn't say in here that he's putting himself forward.
He's happy to.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's a good move. Let's do it. So is anyone willing to nominate Councillor Bill then? Councillor Allison? I'm sure Colin wants to do it. Ah, who's that? No, I think so. Everyone's happy with nominating Councillor Bill?
Yep.
Mayor Bill, obviously. What am I saying? I emoted him already. Yeah. So we do have a recommendation then on page 8 of the supplementary agenda. We got Councillor Allison that moved that. We got Councillor Michael to second that. I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. We move on to the next 13.10, another nomination for Local Government Association President. Again, we got the choice to nominate somebody or not to nominate anyone. I can leave it open to the chamber if they think we got any chance or even want to do that. Councillor Lynn?
Well, I would think that we would resolve to not nominate an eligible member to the position of Local Government Association President. I don't really think that we need to do that.
Are you happy moving that
I'll
motion?
move it.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Ellison? Any more questions? No. We do have a motion. I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? No, Allison. Sorry. Carried unanimously. Now, we come to the most important thing of tonight, I would say, is as we've sort of come together the other week, we sort of were pretty unanimous in the appreciation that this is sort of the time that we really need to adopt this budget. Otherwise, we might have start running into issues, let's put it that way. So, Councillor Lynn, do you have anything to say? Your microphone's on. Oh, sorry. We do have a motion recommendation in front of us. Quite a lengthy one. I again will not read out. Actually, there's probably one point I need to make. Between the recommendation that we do have in our supplementary agenda and the recommendation that's right there on our screen, I think nobody will probably notice it. There's some slight specific changes in there that just to align better with the act. Like one example is it says at the beginning, it says pursuant to section 123 and then in brackets 6. The motion, that the recommendation that we have in our agenda is without the bracket and the 6. So there's these are the changes throughout this recommendation. It does absolutely not change the intent or anything about it. It's just to better align with the act. So just wanted to mention that. Other than that, this is the recommendation. Do we have a mover, a seconder? Any discussion? Councillor Con?
Question. So when we were at the meeting the other day, I thought we were discussing and asked for a few numbers about the rebate. I didn't receive. Did we ever get that? Yeah, because we were looking at the rebate at 3.5 after or before, and I think I just pulled 20% out of my hat really, and that's the number we're using. Like, because what I thought we were going to get supporting documentation with that, and it actually even says it in the conclusion that I think that we were going to elected members were going to get it before the meeting, but I haven't seen it. Has anyone else got it?
No, it hasn't been provided. Yeah.
So the intent we were told, and then it
Yeah.
also says in this thing, so what's the failing there?
So I beg your pardon, councillor Collins?
Well, we were told we were going to get it, so there's a failing. So what, did you not have the figures of different numbers apart from the 20, or you just did it on the 20, that the number that was suggested on the night? Because I think I suggested 15 or maybe 18 or 20, you know, there was a different thing. And then there was an idea whether we did it before the 3.5 or after. And then I think the number was going to give us for the Friday, the agenda came out on Friday, and it actually says, I can't, in somewhere it does say that the elected members will get that information before the meeting. I looked at communication a couple of times, I've checked my emails and I haven't been able to find it. So it hasn't been provided, is that correct?
That is correct. When we did the modelling of the 20%, and bear with me, I'm just trying to get through to that attachment, you will note that the rebate being given is around about $430,000. So a rebate given, how can I explain this? If the $430,000 is funded, then there's a reduction in revenue. So the 3.5% is based on after the rebate. So when we did the numbers, the rebate wasn't a low number, the rebate was a very high number. So at 20%, it's 430,000. At 15%, it'll be more. So the ultimate number is 3.5% after the rebate. Does that help? So
Yeah, it does help, but I thought we were going to get those figures. So then we could have, you know, made a decision on our own, whether we wanted to support either one or the other.
Through you, Mayor, we do owe you an apology because it was intended to send that data out Friday. We simply ran out of time and overlooked it. Just a précis in terms of if you were to change from the 20% to 15%, the biggest impact is actually on residential assessments. There's not a huge variation in between the 15 to 20 on the primary production, so it doesn't actually make a big difference. But recall some of the graphs that were presented in the early meeting. There's a very significant number of residential assessments that would actually benefit at a significant cost. Yeah, we should have provided that data so you can see that.
But if that data was supplied, we could have actually, there's the different levers that we could have moved. Like if it was moving residential more than the other, we could have actually changed it, the differential between prime reduction or something else. But, you know, we're sitting here now and, you know, I just feel that, you know, I find it hard to make an informed decision not having those figures that I thought we were going to get. But so the 15%, if we dropped it from 20 to 15, that would only benefit. I thought the prime producers were the ones who had the biggest inflationary amount. So it's a rebate. So there's going to be a lot more prime producers with increases over 20% or 15. So you're saying they got more over 20, and the residential have got more over 15. But still, the gap in payment from 15 for the prime production, they're still getting 5% more rebate.
Through you, Meg, that's correct. Is that as presented in the previous report, the biggest inflation in terms of valuations that were causing a challenge was primary production between 20 and 55%. So that the use of the 20% alleviates those huge increases for those properties. The other thing to consider is the reduction in the rate is also alleviating increases for everyone. Hence, I suppose the minimal change it would have in terms of primary production of land use.
So when we do have a recommendation in front of us. I mean, the Councillor Collins, you obviously free to either propose an amendment if that's what you're after, or what's your? It hasn't yet, but I mean,
Well, I'll move it then.
Councillor Collins
And
moving.
before I move it, I'd like to get the 20% to 15. I'd like to move that my recommendation is to have the rebate is available only for property valuation increase greater than 15%.
Because I do have to, we wouldn't have the, as we've just been told, we wouldn't have this would substantially change the figures, and we don't have those figures. So I don't know if this is if we as elected members can make an informed decision.
That's my point entirely. We haven't got the figures, so
I understand that. So the question obviously would be, you're entirely entitled to do that, let's say. The question is if there would be a seconder to that motion. That's even something that we can do with.
So just so that, because we're only obviously talking about the revenue side. So am I right in understanding that our rate in the dollar will remain as it is? So you're moving the recommendation with the rate in the dollar as it is, but you're reducing the high value threshold to 15%. If that's the case, we will result in a deficit. And that deficit will be reflected out in the long-term financial plan, and we would need to rerun those numbers.
And this will be a substantial change in, what's it, the business plan and the long-term financial plan.
The way we have presented the figures, we have adjusted the rate in the dollar to ensure that our revenue remained roughly what you would see on page 21 of the attachments of 20,271,000.
Where do we move from here? I mean,
The motion hasn't been seconded yet, Mr. Mayor.
that's exactly right. So do we have, we can still, he's moved the motion. Do we have a seconder?
A question, if I can,
Question.
through the mayor, do we have any sense of what the impact would be? Because I mean, initially my view was a much lower threshold in terms of rebate. I'm supportive of it coming down, but I'd like to understand roughly what it might mean.
Well, the details we provided with was a $3 million costing for a 10% reduction. That was the figures you gave us the information session.
That was the original one, and then this will be 15. So the question is where between 3 million and 400,000 that would sit.
Yeah, so at 20%, we've more or less balanced the budget. At 10, we were 3 million and we weren't quite that far in the hole, but it was a big rebate. It seems to me it's not a linear thing. That was at Nigel, so.
Is there any approximation that can be done this quickly?
Not sure.
Yeah. I would roughly estimate a couple of 100,000. It all depends on the conditions and who's eligible. So that may be less. It's very, very difficult to actually tell until we experience it.
So to understand it correctly, it's a couple 100,000 difference, just extra on what's in there right now. As in,
Well, that would be per year, and then the compounding effect of that. would be quite significant over the 10-year plan unless it was very clear that it was only going to apply to 1 year. But part of the discussion was that consideration would be given this financial year to potentially alleviating those massive increases over a longer period of time and not just a single rebate. So that would have a flow-on effect as well. In other words, once you start, if you offer the 15%, I suppose it's difficult to walk away from it the following year. That's what you intended to do.
Councillor Collins.
But we're already way off our rebate policy. We've changed, we've just thrown that out the window anyway. So we're just, like 3.5% is just a figure, you know, if you're going to stick with the Local Government Act, we would have done the -10 and the -15. But we're moving every cent in the dollar, and that is direct contradiction of our rating policy. So we're just doing what we want anyway. So to say it's going to affect us next year, we just do what we want next year, because that's effectively what we're doing. So, you know, I think the -10, -15 thing would have been a lot better in hindsight, but we got led down this way without the supporting figures that we're going to get. That's what disappoints me. That's why I'm making the point and saying it's 15, because you were asked that and we haven't got the figures. We don't know. You're guessing, so it might be 200K. And to me, that's 200K that could be in the ratepayer's pocket and not in ours. So, you know, I think we've got a bit of a dilemma on how this has progressed to here. I was a lot more confident if I'd actually seen those figures as promised. So I'm going to stick with the 15%, and if we have to live with it, I'm quite happy with that. But if I don't get a second, then we'll go from there.
Just to probably clarify, last Tuesday night when we met, we effectively were bringing rating options which were bringing a revenue in, and we were trying to match those revenue options to rating increases. Now, the rating increase that we resulted in was, it was a target number of 3.5, which was the number provided to us. Had we brought back a 15% rebate or even a 10% rebate, the reality would have been the rates in the dollar would have actually been higher, because but what would have happened is the distribution of that rebate would have been different because of the fluctuating property valuations. The notion of bringing back and cutting the revenue altogether was not the takeaway message from last Tuesday night. The message now is let's cut our revenue, which is a different proposition and different way in which to bring our budget and long-term financial plan together. If people understand the way in which it's been done or unclear in any way, happy to answer the questions.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks to the Mayor and the CEO. I think, and of course, no decision was being contemplated at that session the other week. But I think to Councillor Collins' point, perhaps what was left open from that discussion was the rebate that would be given. So dare I ask, would it be feasible then to allay concerns around and put some closure around this rebate, that we consider the 15% as part of a special council meeting as soon as possible, or do we just decide tonight that, you know, Councillor Collins already moved an amendment.
We will have a motion that's been moved. Really, we need to just, I think we got the information that we have. That's right, okay. That's right. Somebody. That's right. So we do have a. That's right. So that's all. This motion has been moved. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor Allison seconds the motion. So we are clear. It's everything the same, except the rebate is instead of being threshold at 20%, it's threshold at 15%. And the information that we've received, as late as it is about $200,000 impact on our budget and obviously compounding impact on our long-term financial plan. Is there anything else that Nigel or Richard want to say about it? Otherwise, we'll put that motion. Is there any discussions?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the motion. I mean, I think I wouldn't like to vote on a motion like that if we don't know the actual costing of it. It's just not a wise thing to do. The balance has come out reasonably well. The rural average rate increase is 12%, which is more than it was from the previous budget with the previous draft that was presented. So if we take it to 15, we might drop a bit, but it's going to cost us money to do it. So I would rather hold off on this motion, and I'm prepared to put the original motion on that's draft up if this motion fails.
Is just the mover or seconder want to speak, or anyone else want to speak to this motion? That's a Michael.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. So, thank you, Mayor. Look, although I'm a little bit uneasy about it, I came to the budgeting process with a view of a much lower threshold in terms of rebates, and of course the 3.5%. I would say that the budget's been prepared in a, at what is hopefully the tail end of some fairly unusual economic circumstances, and to the extent that it compounds through the long-term financial plan, some of the other underlying assumptions in that may well change over time by reason of changes in, I guess, the broader economic circumstances with inflation and things like that. So, on the understanding that, there's a rudimentary view that this might have a marginal impact in the scheme of things, I'm willing to support it on that basis.
Well, anybody else wants to speak on that point? I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Well, it's a tie, so the vote comes down to me. Now, I do have to say, I came in this as a left amendment. Obviously, my position drastically changed now sitting in this chair. So I do think if it's the information is relayed to us very late, but we still got it. Nigel said about 200,000. I think 200,000 doesn't seem to be like that big of a deal. If you can, as Councillor Collin put it, have it in the ratepayers' pockets instead of ours, I think that's not a bad thing. I would vote for that motion.
Could I call for a division on that, please?
Councillor Allison called for division, so everyone for it, please stand up. Sit down again. Yes. Now we move on to point 13.12. That's the rate rebates. So actually, look at this closely. So I do wonder, how much has that changed now? That's something that Nigel has to work through it. Now we can leave everything else in place.
In terms of,
I mean, there's some numbers in those tables that have been supplied with the agenda that obviously would change now.
Yeah.
We'll have them worked out and they'll come.
yes, yeah.
On the next holiday.
New annual business plan
Yes.
developed and, or updated.
Yep.
And that'll be circulated to the elected members so they can
Good.
see that decision.
That's it. Decision is made. Second one would be the 13.12 recommendations of that rate rebates that shouldn't change, I think, as I understand that. Is that correct? Is there anything to add? Nigel? No? All good. Is there any questions? Any comments, Councillor Michael?
Just a comment, because it seems to be the subject of some conjecture. I just want to make it very clear that previously my desire on rebates were that they were automated rebates and that people didn't have to apply for them. So I just wanted to make that clear for the off the microphone comments that were being made over here.
Comment accepted. We do have a recommendation. Is there any mover or second?
Just got one question. So
Question,
just going to the
Councillor Mark.
list, what's the car park? They get a rebate for the
Childcare and Freeling?
food land.
Oh, food. So I understand, I think that was part of the development application process. There was some prompting of rebates on council rates as
Yeah,
an
but that's,
incentive.
yeah, but it's for the car park as well as the, so it says the component of food land section, then it says the rebate, 25%. They'll get cleaned up in 25, 26. And then it's got, after that, it says, 2 car parks, they're getting a rebate of 50% on those. Is that an ongoing thing? Is that car park part of our responsibility or something?
Yeah, Councillor Ross, that's part of the same rebate as the first one. It's all the one property.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Yeah, and it was part of the agreement at the time in converting the road into their property and a range of legal fees, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, because I thought, because it did take council, I thought we might have responsibility for some of that land. That's why they're only paying 50% of the council car park or the rates. But they own the whole car park, it's just they're getting a rebate.
Yep.
We do have a recommendation. Do we have any mover or seconder?
Sorry,
No,
just-
Councillor Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just one final question, just in relation to the rebates that apply to the religious places. So like, there's a list a mile long, and my understanding is that those rebates are obviously mandated by the Local Government Act, but they're for places of worship. So all those rebates that are being applied to the properties that are owned by various churches and things, they're places of worship, or are they other properties? Well, yeah, well, cemeteries and stuff, but they're not sort of just buildings that are investment properties.
I don't know if anyone wants to answer that.
That's correct.
Instead of a yes,
That's correct.
that's correct. Any more questions? Councillor Lynn?
No, given that the Catholic Church in Freeling is now not holding services, they're only doing funerals and weddings, and they're not having normal services anymore. And if I'm just asking, if they were to decide to have it, to sell the church and how long, and have it change its land use, which has happened in others where the church has turned into a house. Where do we stand on that? How long is that? Does this hold?
I'm sure as soon as.
Yeah, that's just dealt with at property sale to convert it to a
Oh,
rateable
right.
property.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Can you press your button? Councillor Lynn. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I move the recommendation.
Councillor Bill is moving the recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Michael. I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Now, we've done. Budget is done. We move on to let's see if we got that right. Yes, we move on to 14 questions on notice. There's no questions on notice. Questions without notice. Any questions without notice? Yeah, no questions without notice. Any questions? No. Then we do have point 16 motions on notice. We do have one, which is Councillor Michael's motion. I hand over to him. You got something to say there.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this reasonably brief because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. What I would like to say though is that this is about making sure that we've got I guess a fresh set of eyes over how we're carrying out our operations in this space. As someone that works in private industry, this is certainly not a foreign proposition. It's nothing that we should be should be frightened by or take offence by. It's really someone coming in with a fresh set of eyes, an independent expert, looking at how we're delivering our capital works to make sure that we're getting most efficient use of our resources. And my understanding is that there are some other councils up north that have undertaken this sort of an analysis as well as others throughout the state. And certainly in business, it's not unheard of. So I think this is something that would, ideally pay for itself, depending on what the outcomes of the report are. So that's why I've put it in there. Thank you.
It hasn't been moved yet.
I'll
Councillor Michael
Thank
moves
you.
that. Councillor Holm seconded. Yep, if there's anyone, Richard has a comment on it.
Just as an update, since the report or since this was included into the agenda, we have had an update on what the costs would be, and similar investigations. And please, this is no, I'm certainly not putting anyone off, but it's closer to probably $80,000 to get this style of report done. So we wouldn't expect it to be at the 20,000. I would like to think that it's not 80, but it is likely to exceed that.
Is there is a approximation of 150 hours of staff time on top of that, which is probably at $100 an hour, or whatever, another 15 grand there. Is that still applies even if you get an $80,000 report?
The staff time is our estimate of working with somebody for them to actually get the information from us and provide to them.
So this could be a $100,000 impact potential.
Well,
in the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
This is probably not dissimilar effort to some of the boundary reform stuff, but it wouldn't be across the organisation.
Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this. I think that it's, after getting the survey results, and it's quite clear that we've got to do better in a lot of what we're doing on the roads. And I think we're getting an extra 250,000 this budget, so we're up to 2.75. And I think, if you spent 50,000 or up to 80,000 of that to get better at what we do, find out the performances of each machine and what it's doing, I think it'd be a great help to everyone, Megan and all her, all the people that work with her. And I just hope that we work with them collaboratively and look at it as a beneficial thing. So, and it's a report that can come back to us. So as the elected members, so we're doing our due diligence. We know what is going on, because at the moment we get asked a lot of questions: what is happening, where the money's going, haven't got much idea. But having an independent audit or assessment of the whole work program, then we're going to be in a lot better positioned as elected members to make decisions in the future. So I'll be supporting.
Now, can I, I don't know if that's, well, I'm just going to do it. Can I ask the staff what they think of that? Is that allowable to see, like maybe Megan's opinion or Richard's opinion on such a report? Is that something that helps them do their job better? Or do they recognize that as micromanaging or something negative?
Yeah, no, not at all. In fact, we welcome the report because I think it will confirm one way or the other, where, as Councillor Collins said, where the money is being spent and whether we're getting good value for money at the moment in our overall program. So, our view would be that if this goes through, we would be onto it pretty quickly.
And you'd see that as an asset, or a potential asset to our operations. Like we can
well,
operate better, more efficiently, and see if there's any shortcomings or not, and change or adapt accordingly.
All of those things, we would see that it would confirm, directions that we're currently on, directions that we want to take, and as I say, determine whether we're getting the best outcomes for the community. So it's probably the sort of thing that I wouldn't certainly say it's needed every couple of years, but if this is a sort of once every 5 years, once every 10 years type arrangement to as I say, just to independently assess the operations, I think it's a good thing.
Right, Councillor Lynn.
I'd like to know how Megan has reacted to this, because she's the one that is at head of that department, and I'd just like to know what she.
Thank you, Councillor Lynette, and through the chair, our department, our team actually welcome this, and I particularly welcome it because there'll be a consultant doing it. We are currently going through similar processes ourselves, and we've got some ideas ourselves, so this will actually help tie everything in together. So our team are actually looking forward to it.
Good. So we do have a motion in front of us. It's been moved and seconded. If there's no more debate, then I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Those against? So did you get the, so it's been carried? Can you redo that? Those in favour? Those against? Oh, but you're still in favour, so it's carried unanimously. Right. All right. We've got motions without notice. Do we have any motions without notice? Councillor Ellison.
Thank you. Through the chair, so I've given the elected members a copy of my motion without notice, along with the CEO and acting mayor. So this stems from, well, it goes back to last year for the first dam on Twarts Road, that's in Roseworthy Gardens, and when it breached last year. So now we're into this year. We had 10 mils of rain over the last few days. And we've had William Lake's new dam overflow from the dam, from the side of the dam and along the side of the road down Twarts Road, and then run underneath and then down Redbanks Road into the train line. It's been running for a few days. It's stopped today now. And it has gone out into a crop, and conversations with the person that has the crop. I've had several conversations with that person who's asking what's happening with water into that area. I know he's been speaking to council. He was waiting on phone calls back yesterday afternoon when I had a conversation with him at about 5:30. He'd put in several calls. I didn't hear from him today, so I'm taking it that council got back to him. We are due for approximately 40 mils starting next Wednesday through to, I think, the Saturday, Sunday, looking at the weather forecast. I'm very nervous on what's going to happen down Redbanks Road coming from various dams, not just one, but probably all three that are sitting on the top. The Higginbotham Dam, they're wanting to pump water out across the road, which I'm not happy have dug up the road. And then they've laid a pipe underneath it, and it's running down the extension of Kangaroo Flat Road, which may then go into another person's crop, but eventually it'll make its way down to the train line, and the train line runs down to Redbanks Road. So I'm concerned about that, on top of Roseworthy Gardens, that dam overflowing and running also possibly down there where the flow tends to run and end up on Redbanks Road. So my motion, I'm wanting to get this rectified within the 7 days, get some sort of action happening, as you'll see, because I am very nervous about that, and it impacts the Gawler Belt area, and I live in the Gawler Belt area, and yeah, I don't need to be out every few hours having a look at what the water's doing. So, yeah.
Councillor, do you want to make a comment?
So I'll second the motion. And I'd
Councillor
like,
Addison will.
I thought,
I'll move my motion.
and I'll second it. I think, this is an issue since I've come onto council anyway, that's come up a number of times, but I'm curious about some of the stuff that Councillor Ellison was talking about there in terms of developers putting pipes under council-owned roads and discharging water off their sites. I mean, don't you need a permit to do that?
If that is a question, I think Craig might be able to answer that.
Through the chair, short answer is yes, and a permit was issued for the pipe in question. Just to touch on a couple of things, if I may. In terms of the farmer who you mentioned, Councillor Ellison, contact was made with our development services team and that individual today in relation to the matter. Coming back to the pipe, yes, work was done, as I understand, on or around late last week, around Thursday, in terms of implementing a pipe with the awareness of our engineers. It was part of a scheme which was looking at some other works on one of the sites. That work in the end wasn't proceeded with. The pipe was put in place for a purpose of drainage of a existing basin to enable some enlargement, but that's now been postponed, as I understand, indefinitely. Sorry, Lisa, I think you were looking to add to the commentary.
Through the chair, this chamber needs to understand that there were pre-development flows, because the narrative that I've been dealing with over the last couple of days is that the Roseworthy Township developers have created all of these scenarios. I can claim that's not the case. The pre-development flows are continuing. These developers are required to deal with their development. That is what is occurring. So with regards to Villawood, a lot of the rain has caused issues through the farming land, so land that has not yet been even developed. At this point in time, 137 allotments have been approved on the Villawood site. Only 50 have been given a certificate of title. We don't have one development currently under construction because we're dealing with those DAs right now. The roads are contributing to some runoff. They are directed to the basin. There has been a minor breach of the basin. The developer has been given a direction, which was issued this morning, that minor breach needs to be rectified, and they need to also undertake works along Towards Road, where there has been a failure of the actual dirt there. They are currently working on that, and they've been told it has to happen before the weekend and the actual additional rains. That is happening. In regards to St. Eves, their basin has topped at the moment, but all the water is being contained within their site. Nothing has left their site to this point in time. With regards to Quindoo, Craig's absolutely correct. There is no water going to be discharged, notwithstanding that pipe has actually been undertaken and been constructed. Now, the premise this council has to understand is that there is still an assumption that overland flows that come from beyond all of those sites, we're talking Kingsford, we're talking past Viterra, we're talking part of the greater Roseworthy area, can and will flow up to an average of 3 times over and above per annum. So 1 year we might have might have an occurrence of 5 times, we might not get an occurrence for 2 years. Those pre-development flows we cannot control. We cannot control, and the developers are not required to control. But the works that all the developers are doing at the moment, they're currently actually working on creating larger basins than what they're required to do so. And they keep enlarging these basins at every stage. So there is a substantial amount of works. The reality is there are works and development happening beyond Roseworthy that continue to contribute to those pre-development flows. So we need to be very mindful. Roseworthy town expansion has not created all of these overland flows. There are areas beyond, there has been significant development.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in there. So I've lived in that area 19 years and I haven't seen water flows like that. I've seen one heavy rain since I lived out there in about, I think, 2010, but it's all happening since those developments have come in that we've got the water problems. I wouldn't be raising this if it had stopped. Now, they've just put the dam in for the corner of Redbanks, Twarts and Edward, and now you're telling me they're going to make it bigger. They've only just finished that and made a pretty rock section where all that water that overflows comes straight out and comes straight down Redbanks Road. That's new. I've been videoing on my phone for quite a while, all of those water flows. So I'm sorry, I don't accept that.
There are additional basins that will be undertaken with all stages throughout all of those estates. Some of the contributing factor along Redbanks Road is what staff have found is there is actually a collapsed drain within the Department of Transport road. So we've actually got that evidence. We've actually given that to the Department of Transport and we've asked them to actually repair that culvert. So there are a number of factors we need to consider. So that has been reported.
So last year that same drain had collapsed when I raised the issue last year when we had all the same water. That was the answer I was given, that the drain's collapsed, we're going to get it repaired. I don't know why Dipty didn't repair it then if that's their job to do. They're going to have to start, we need to start applying some pressure to them. But the water's coming out of our development, of the 3, and I'm really just talking in the last few days, the one for William Lakes. That's a major issue. The amount of water, and Acting Mayor Simon came with me, and we had a few people stop and talk to us that live on Edward Road, that have major concerns about water and then where it's ending up. It was absolutely gushing down there from 10 mils of rain. Now, Wednesday, we're going to get a heap of rain. I won't put my, life on bomb being 100% correct, but it's going to go for about 5 or 6 days. And I want to know where that water's going. And I'm sure if I talk to Gawler Belt people down on Clancy Road, they're going to want to know the same thing. They're relying that we're going to do the right thing. Like I said, I've got 3 areas where it's come from. There's not one house on William Lakes at the moment. So where is all that water coming? I went and had a look and it's just pouring out of there, but there's no house. There's not one house there. There's their little sales shed, but I don't understand where all that water's coming from. And I've driven around there and had a bit of a look, and I can't find it. So, come next week, if we get all of this water, we're going to have a major issue. People are going to want to be compensated, and they've been using that word to me in the last 3 or 4 days, and they want to be compensated from the council. So, I'm putting this forward. I know you don't agree, some of you management don't agree with what I've put forward, but we've got to get on and sort this, or we've got bigger problems, and budget isn't going to fix our bigger problems.
Lisa? Oh, no. So I think I'll jump in here. So to me, it seems like that what this motion without notice would require is to bring forward halfway to a solution, which means it sounds like we've already have a few. It sounded like these basins going to get extended. It sounds like the Villawood's been notified, and by the weekend they're going to do something about it. So it seems like some of this stuff is already in the work. So if this gets through, you guys already done half of the work. So I think what's left to do is we got to move. We got to second it. Lisa, you want to make a comment? No. But I'm not doing that. But it just sounded like Villawood had. That's right. But this is.
Sorry if I may, the basin that we were referring to was linked to the pipe that is towards Road near to Kangaroo Flat Road. It's on the Quindoo land, not the Villawood land. So it's important just to be clear around what's intended and where, but the basin enlargements or the basin deliveries are linked to the progression of development, of course.
But I thought I heard specifically something about the Villawood Dam that has had a minor breach, and they're going to do something about it by the weekend. That's what I referred to. Yeah. Exactly, it's a William Lakes, isn't it? We do have a motion in front of us. It's been moved and seconded, moved by Councillor Ellison, seconded by Councillor Michael. I'll put the motion forward. Those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Is there any other motions without notice? Nope. Now, we do need to move on to some confidential items, which says we need to send out pretty much everyone except the elected members and CEO Richard. So first thing, yes. But we do have to, no. Oh, you go to the bathroom? I think I'll yeah, well, yeah. We can move it without him being here. Well, we do have a recommendation to move into confidence for the presentation of the CEO performance review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lynn, seconder, Councillor Peter. Just go in confidence. Michael is just going to the toilet. I move the motion 18.1. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Collin, you're required to vote. Moving into confidence. No, we can vote without him. We still got.
Just comes back in.
Yeah. Yes. Perfect. All right, carried unanimously. Except Michael, Councillor Michael has been not in his seat, so he's not allowed to vote.